Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Customer Experience Presentation, Typical Benefits of Running SAP in Azure. I am Kristen Tanner, Global Marketing Strategist for Protera Technologies, and I will be hosting today's webinar. We appreciate all of you taking time out of your very busy schedules to attend today's educational session. Protera is a global leading hosting and managed services certified SAP partner and Microsoft Gold Cloud Competency Partner with specialization in Azure Managed Services. With many Protera customers currently running SAP, SAP HANA, and S/4HANA on Azure, we hope you find value in today's session as we share how you can leverage the Azure platform to support your complete IT landscape, including your critical SAP systems. We'll be starting the webinar shortly, but first a few housekeeping notes. Only our presenters' phones are live, and your microphones have been muted by default. Our presenters will be answering questions at the conclusion of the webinar. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A function in the sidebar. If we don't get to your questions during the presentation, I or another member of the Protera team will be sure to follow up with you directly. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded and a link will be made available to all attendees. Now I would like to introduce today's presenter, Patrick Osterhaus, President and Chief Technology Officer for Protera. Take it away, Patrick.
Hey, thanks, Kristen. And thanks everyone for joining our webinar today. As the title states here, we're going to talk about customer experiences and what have been the benefits that our customers running SAP in Azure Cloud have taken advantage of. So we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits as well as the value captured from running the SAP systems and taking advantage of those native benefits in Azure Cloud. So I'll give a brief introduction and overview of Protera as a company and talk about our key services, and then we'll get right into the meat of the subject here with the webinar today. Quick highlight of Protera Technologies. We were founded 20 years ago and 2 weeks ago. We just had our 20th anniversary, October 2nd. So you can see that formed in 1998. Our headquarters is where I'm focused and located today, Chicago, Illinois. We have offices around the world. We have an office in Europe as well as India, and we have many home offices around the United States in addition to our headquarters. As you can see, we have 24/7 follow-the-sun support for our Protera App Care service, which you can see in the lower left and the upper right. And our App Care services portfolio talks about and it covers the suite of services that is required to run a world-class IT operation for your SAP systems. And you can see that reflected in our mission statement, where we've been keenly focused since our inception in 1998, 20 years ago, of driving to the very best service levels of SAP technical services for running SAP Compute. You can see that we have 5 certifications globally recognized by SAP. And as I'll mention in the next slide here, our strategic focus with Microsoft and focusing on the best that the Azure Cloud can provide for our SAP customers. You can see a few differentiators here on the bottom right, how many migrations we've done in SAP environments that we continue to manage, as well as our many certifications in our platform. The focus of today's talk is to talk about the Azure Cloud, and I'd be remiss to not talk about our certifications and our experience working with Microsoft. As you can see here, we have a long-standing relationship back to our inception in 1998 of all the multiple certifications, including our Gold Cloud Platforms certification, as well as you can see the listing here with the Gold Azure Partner, the Go Fast Partner, Co-Sell, P-Seller. So you can see that we have a lot of experience working with Microsoft and can talk to the full service portfolio of what Microsoft Azure can provide. So talking about our key services, not the focus of today's talk, but both of these services do a really good job of talking and referencing how we bring out the best of Azure for SAP. So I'll briefly touch upon our Azure platform. our FlexBridge platform for migrating compute into Azure. That's the transformation acceleration platform. I'll briefly talk to that. And I'll also briefly talk about our App Care. This is our managed services that we provide for SAP Compute running on Azure Cloud. Again, not the focus of today's talk, but it's good common knowledge every SAP resource should know about, and that is the SAP Activate. To get into Azure, you're going to have a migration path if you're taking an existing system. And again, not the focus of today's talk, but the methodology that SAP has built called SAP Activate is composed of 6 steps. And so this methodology is built into our software, into our operating experiences as well as our FlexBridge platform to deliver this in a systematic and automated method. So we have a lot of webinars to talk to that, but the keen focus on all the experiences that we have learned within Azure, a lot of it has come through the migration and the moving of compute into the Azure cloud. So this will come up in our benefit slides that you'll see momentarily. From a very, very high level of the Protera FlexBridge migration toolset, you can see on these bullets here what makes it unique. Very important to note that because we were an SAP certified partner and we follow SAP's best practices as well as Microsoft's Azure's best practices, we built the tool set to reflect that. So you can see here that we have built an operating platform to help with that migration and lifecycle of the SAP compute into Azure. So you can see one tool that will fully manage the SAP Activate methodology and help through migration of that path to Azure. And just some highlights of the benefits there. Again, a lot of information on the Protera FlexBridge toolset, the platform. So feel free to reach out if we can do a demo for you on that. And then also wanted to talk to our Protera AppCare slide here. This is our platform that integrates a customer environment. We're going to hear a lot today about hybrid cloud. Very, very strong benefit of the Azure platform is tying the customer on-premise environment into the Azure public cloud and how all that integration happens in the service and support of that. We've been doing this Protera AppCare for 10 years. We got certified by SAP in 2008, our full platform. And over the years working with Microsoft, we got certified with running SAP compute in Azure. So all these services that we provide guaranteed SLAs on a monthly basis for performance of the system, as well as our performance to you, the customer, is guaranteed by an SLA. So think of the full stack. We cover everything for support and maintenance and making sure those systems run in tip-top shape, not only for SAP, but for any add-on or peripheral product. And you can see that reflected here where we will provide the infrastructure management on the lower right area. We'll provide the technical EMS expertise. You can consider that as basis. And we'll also wrap those two categories. And we have a category called Call Plus, which will provide a middle tier. If the customer wants to do the SAP maintenance themselves, we'll provide the infrastructure and some advanced features like backup and DR capabilities on top of that. And that's, again, guaranteed with a monthly SLA. And you can see that on the left side, all what is guaranteed by that monthly payment. Should mention that Protera, today we do not focus, in the past I should say, since our inception, we're a technical SAP services company. So we will work with your SI to provide the services end to end. So we're very partner friendly to make sure we have the very best solution for you, the customer. So let's jump into the meat of the content here today, the benefits of running SAP in Azure. So something that we worked on last few months, we did a blog posting on this exact topic, was the benefits of running SAP and this new and day that you can look at if you have a infrastructure spend, instead of looking at doing on-premise and buying hardware that is going to be sitting there for 5 years and trying to size that appropriately now to be able to handle the compute of the future. It makes sense to look at Azure today. And so we're seeing this, a lot of interesting companies to learn about what does it take to do that transition, to move from this legacy capital-intensive landscape to this cost-effective, high-performing OpEx solution. So a lot of interest in drivers for that. And we see three, you could call force multiplying factors. We call them the HIP factors. These are coming from three categories. You can see it as hyper innovation. So you see this cloud product release cycle shortening. You see this all over on Azure, where now the largest VM is available for 12 terabytes. So basically the largest compute that needs to run S4 or HANA systems, we can now put in one single VM in the Azure cloud. So that has just been an amazing growth of the VMs over the last year. So hyper innovation is great advantage to our customers to be able to take advantage of the latest performance and decreasing cost at the same time. And you'll see that come up in some slides here, some statistics on that. The other force multiplying factor is around integration. I like the saying in general, the rising tide raises all boats, and that is especially true with Azure Cloud. Once you put a server in Azure, all those native Azure features are automatically available to it. So once you have an SAP system, a file server, now all those capabilities built into the Azure Cloud, including the machine learning, IoT, all this intelligence that is continually added on and improved and created every day by Microsoft is immediately available to that system once it's in Azure. And it's available, as this next bullet specifies, around the world. And that last bullet here, the last force multiplier, this factor, is around the platform. So one platform, it touches to the integration piece, but the other part here is that it's one single pane of glass that you can manage and orchestrate and automate all your services worldwide. So not just a solution for SAP. Again, it's the rising tide raises all the boats. Every factor of your infrastructure that runs your company is going to get this force multiplying effect once it goes into Azure. So these are the big factors that sit on top of the next 6 that we're going to talk to. And these 6 factors we call the Caesar's benefits. This is typically, one of these benefits will be the kick start of why you're going to do this migration, why you want to move your compute into the Azure cloud. We've come up with this is our term we created internally, is the Caesar's benefits. So it helped us to learn, the topics and be able to understand internally how best to describe it internally and be able to build KPIs and understanding around how to measure the savings for customers so they get the best return on investment. And you can see this abbreviation Caesars as these names. First, there's cost savings for the C. We'll talk about each of these in detail. And I should mention that some of these you'll hear in different terms. There's agility. You might also hear flexibility. If you Google these terms, you'll see them come up in different flavors. But the key point is that they're all known as benefits within going to Azure Cloud, and we'll give you the exact use cases for where we've seen our customers capture that value. So you'll see that in the next coming slides. So agility, efficiency, we have the scalability, abstraction, which will make a little more sense here momentarily, and then also the resiliency and security. So we'll get right into probably what's the most interesting one for companies initially, and this has been proven in studies that this is the biggest driver of our companies move to Azure Cloud, is looking at this cost savings initially. Ultimately, they see that the value is around the operational side, probably is a bigger driver, yet initially companies have been interested in this cost savings and how can they capture that savings immediately to their bottom line. So recent study by RightScale, they surveyed a bunch of companies looking what was their drivers to move into Azure Cloud, and they saw over 26 price points. Azure dropped prices in 24 of those service areas over a recent span of 6 months. So we constantly see, aside from how you choose to run the infrastructure with all these cool bells and whistles now that you can do in Azure in the cloud, just the cloud itself is becoming much more efficient over time in how these products are being created and being provided. So just over a period of time, you're going to see inherent Azure price lowering over a span of a few months. So it's very significant because you might have to make a decision on this next bullet actually about how you reserve compute. And if you're not familiar with that term, this is how you can prepay essentially in advance to say, I'm going to run this server 24/7 for the next year, so I will get a discount if I pay up front and say I'm going to run this ahead of time. So considering what I just said about the price lowering, you may want to go with shorter terms, or even maybe run that compute on demand if the prices continually go down. So this is something that we can help guide you of what decisions are best for each system type. Obviously, size and the performance of those instances is critical, but that's something that it's worthy of looking at each system and then making a determinant what's the best way to capture the most cost savings. And then the third bullet's ultra critical about how you look at sizing systems today in the cloud age. It's no longer needed where you're going to try to predict the future and look out 5 years in advance. The best thing is to try to size that production system. If you have a system that's already on-premise, and it's going to move to Azure without a lot of changes, like on the operating system, the database, or SAP versioning, you can probably tune that system very, very accurately to be even undersized where it's at today and still run very, very well because you're taking advantage of the newest CPUs and memory. So right sizing is critical. You can save a ton of money just by getting the system sized properly. And there's a lot of tools available. We can help guide if you have questions in the area to make sure you do that properly. And lastly, the other big category I would mention is around cost savings, around just adjusting the IOPS. This is around the performance of your drives. Not every system has to have solid state drives. It's a great feature. I'm sure all the users love it. But even within a specific system, not every file system, every drive needs to have the solid state, best performing, even adjusting the IOPS within that specific server doesn't have to be the highest. A file server may be sufficient with having standard, older technology of magnetic drives, so you can capture cost savings there. So there's a lot of opportunity for the type of compute, and even within the servers and how they're run. So I encourage you to look, and this is an area that is probably the most important part to if you're looking at cost savings specifically, to look at each system individually. And again, if you have questions on that, we can certainly help guide you to do this. The other factor here we talk about in Caesars, the next one here is probably the area that companies are the most surprised by and continually learn and challenge their internal IT system and groups of how to better capture these capabilities around agility. In agility, this bullet point here on the top is in a review of our current S/4HANA projects, customers on average have 3 to 5 sandbox systems created over the life of the project. So just to put in perspective, we have a customer right now doing an S/4HANA migration. They came to us with a very aggressive timeline of wanting to migrate. The project was actually verbally agreed to in the middle of September, and the customer wanted to go live January 1st. And the CIO requested, if at all possible, we could have that first system, copy of production, up by October 15th, which is this last Monday. So just for that project, we enabled this agile approach with development and doing prototyping and configuration for the S/4HANA system. And I should mention, this is not greenfield. If you're familiar with the terms, it's not a new installation. This is a conversion. This is taking an existing ECC system. It had Simple Finance also and implemented it, and we're upgrading that, doing a migration conversion into S4. Just with that project alone, it's been live for a month. We've already run 3 different sandbox copies to do iterations. So much like in the past where you would take a client copy and you could do some configuration changes and test transports, we can now do this very, very easily within the Azure technology of doing snapshots, where we copy the full system, bring another one up in parallel, and test out and prototype that, so we can have multiple iterations and accelerate that project to hit those really aggressive timelines. So the way we've done that is through snapshots. You can also see another way that you can be captured is this first bullet. This is the Azure Site Recovery. So you can actually use this very cool tool, ASR. This is used for DR. That's what the primary purpose, but you can use this to replicate systems into Azure and prototype there. So this is a great feature for you to take an on-premise system and move it to Azure. You can have all your sandbox copies of production done there, and then also use that for your move of your production system to Azure. So that's a big bullet capturing value right there. The other big area that, again, challenges companies on how to think differently is around part timing of systems. That's my phrase for it. So basically, taking any non-production system and right off the bat, run that system only during the work days, during the days. On the weekends, it would be turned off, as well as the night times. So just that alone is going to, take your bill of on-demand down to a fraction, let's say about a fourth of what it would be if it was up 24/7. There's a lot of systems that run perfectly fine just by part timing them. All non-prod systems, these sandboxes also. You have a lot of, the point is that you have a lot of flexibility of when to run those systems and not run those, keep them up and down. Key point is that the orchestration then becomes critical, that you bring these systems down, you know that they're running when they shouldn't be. If you're trying to capture the most value, that's a key part. So make a note there that it brings up another caveat that you have to follow up on, not just deciding schedules, but making sure that schedules are accurate and people are notified when they're not being run properly, or when they're running out of hours, or when they're running out of hours they shouldn't be, I should say. And then this part I already talked about, the snapshotting of systems. That's the top description. Again, taking any system and being able to take a copy of it and iterate it as fast as possible. So applying this idea in DevOps of agile development, you come up with a new prototype and that spawns off new ideas. You can quickly create copies and not risk having to go back to ground zero. You can use the snapshots to be able to create new systems and apply that to get very, very fast projects for migration or for S4, whatever it might be, to use that. And then this last bullet, again, is another big challenge for the the way we typically think on on-premise systems and infrastructure is that we can resize, readjust, and change the capacity and performance of systems at any time. So again, that idea about challenging us on how we can run, optimally run it for the best price and save costs, capture the most cost savings. And so this can be on the drive level, can be taking a specific file system, running 4 of the file systems that are running for the database and SAP application. But there's another file system that's used for software, which is used for patching, used for installations. Performance doesn't have to be critical there. So you can make that specific drive magnetic. That doesn't have to be solid state. And again, you can resize it so you can go up and down as needed. So you don't have to over provision not only the CPU and memory, but also the drives. The Azure cloud storage is extremely inexpensive. It's very, very reasonable. Yet when you have 2x or 3x laying around, there's a lot of waste. So it makes sense to manage this properly. Around efficiency, and this is a term that you'll see when people talk about advantages of Azure Cloud, you'll see other terms here, but by efficiency, what we mean is that you can easily capture what is going on and have transparent view into the information real time. There is a product, a service that's available inherent once you have an Azure subscription called Azure Monitor, and it lets you tap into the full stack of the cloud solution. So you can see here on the right side, the abstraction, the view of, from a very high level view of the operating system, the application, the Azure resources, the cloud itself, and being able to drill into all these pieces at any time. So critical piece, not only the visibility of it, but the aggregation that this is provided as part of the Azure subscription. So you're talking about some really heavy duty data processing that is brought to the table for free with your subscription. Whereas there's some very, very mature third-party products that would compete against this capability that Microsoft has given to you for the admission of your subscription into Azure. So it provides this efficiency where you can make real-time decisions on how best to run your business, run your systems to support your IT. So very, very good capability with Azure Monitor. Just last week, we did a webinar on the Azure stack, and this is one area that I encourage you, if you have on-premise systems running Windows Server today, this is a great place to start with Azure. So you can install Azure Stack, and this would enable you to look at one dashboard and use this one dashboard to manage your on-premise systems and the Azure cloud. So the scalability, when you want to hyperscale right into the cloud, you can burst in the cloud, it becomes available and capable within Azure Stack. So all these integration problems with networking, interfaces, dependencies on ports and all these things just go away with Azure Stack. It's going to handle all the security aspects, the integration parts to get those on-premise systems to talk to the Azure public cloud compute seamlessly. So it's a great place to start. And this is just one part focus more on the on-premise aspect, but certainly there's virtually endless scalability within the cloud itself, not only within a region of Azure, but around the world. So I'd be remiss to say that Azure Stack's the only way you're going to capture the scalability factor. It's available natively within the Azure cloud. And this is the part that's probably the most confusing aspect here is around the abstraction part. And this is the idea on abstraction is, and I don't hear this mentioned a lot, but I think one of the big values of the Azure cloud is around to be able to fully manage any asset within its software. So basically it's, manage any kind of product. So it's compute, it's storage, networking, backups, monitoring. Azure abstracts all the complexity, simplifies it, and lets you consume it within a very standardized tool set. It's a key part of standardization that you don't have to learn all the nuances of every service and how a third party integrates in Azure. The abstraction of how they have done the solution, how Microsoft has built it, it's taken something extremely complicated and simplified it for everyone to be able to use quickly and cost effectively. I think it's a key part. I actually cannot think of articles that talk to this part. I think it's more of a unique view of one of the key values that companies see after they have gone to cloud, and they see how easy it is to manage the infrastructure. Just for an example, one of the customers we just recently talked to was wondering about all their applications and if they needed public access to each application, and that understanding that pretty much everything that can be done on a private on-premise, I shouldn't say private, but on-premise location or a private cloud can all be created within the Azure cloud. We can create VPNs for secure private networks between locations. We can create these private VLANs between the networking resources and the servers. So pretty much everything that is existent in the physical on-premise world is all abstracted and provided virtually within Azure Cloud. So critical part, easy to manage. Once someone sees access to the console, within minutes they can start building servers. Key part here, second to last factor, is resiliency. And again, I'm talking about with the Azure monitor about how we can see the full stack. These resiliencies are provided within the full stack of the application. So you can see the Azure Site Recovery provides not only a solution within on-premise to public cloud, but within the Azure cloud itself. So we can take a full landscape and replicate that to a target location, and it's automatically synchronized. So you have, as it mentions, in Azure, these SAP systems essentially come built in with HA and DR capabilities. You can turn on, right when you go live. And the other part I mentioned in a previous webinar is around the ASR, the Azure Site Recovery around managed disk. So this provides you capabilities within HA that you can share a resource. Very important for SAP that you can share the database information over multiple servers. So any VM that fails, a hardware failure, it automatically recovers and it provides a very resilient uptime for the SAP system. And lastly, this is one of the biggest areas that company, when they start looking at Azure, they have a lot of questions around, is around security. So there's a whole product line, service area built within Azure on the security center. So this is provided. Once you have your subscription, you can enable this. So again, not only with the log management to tell you about what's already happened, but for prevention. So make sure, this starts not only within SAP systems, but within malware and anti-spam within the Office 365 suite. So the collaboration tools have protection. Every level of the stack, so the operating system with the VMs are encapsulated. They're protected against malicious attacks on that level. The network obviously has security constraints with intrusion detection built in, as well as going up the application level where we have these logging capabilities within SAP and within Azure logging tools. And then also the whole category around compliance, where there's a lot of slides within this category around PCI compliance, GDPR, and all the other really important stringent requirements that Azure has that any customer might require. So just as a very high level of companies that are capturing these values, these advantages today, we can see the ChromaFlow system has DR. So this is on-premise using ASR to replicate into the Azure cloud. So you can see that for their SAP system, business system, ERP, as well as business objects. And that is a Windows MS SQL solution. We also have BioSteel, which they've done a production migration to Azure. That was, again, using the replication tools native within Azure, as well as, I should mention, all these companies use the native backup tools. So once that system's in there, we can, once the SAP system goes live in Azure, we can turn on the backup tool set that's native in Azure to protect that environment fully, to be able to recover at any point in time. And lastly, the one I'll also mention here is Tate & Lyle. Tate & Lyle has their BobJ and their analytics systems into the Azure cloud. They're looking to move their ERP system right now into S4 into Azure. So that's a case study that's available on that link. Encourage you to take a look at it. We'll have more news on Tate & Lyle very soon. And with that, we can go to Q&A.
Excellent. Thanks, Patrick. That was fantastic.
And I apologize, my PowerPoint just stopped, so I'll restart it here momentarily. I apologize, but I got some Q&A that came in the meantime before that I recorded in the Zoom, so I'll bring those up. And as I resume this session here, I apologize. It just decided I had enough work for the day. So in the meantime, I'll go through the Q&A here as it's coming up. So the first question on the Q&A is around the migration path, how long it takes to go to Azure typically. And I think that the question came in on the slide when we were talking about S4 specifically and the iterations on that. So typically what we've seen, and it's funny, the very first two, sorry, I'm just bringing up the Q&A section right here. Typically we've seen a duration at most of 6 months. These two implementations specifically are around a 4-month duration. So what that involves is doing multiple prototypes. Our old standard methodology before the cloud was to do one copy of prod and then do the upgrade there. Now with the capabilities of Azure Cloud, where we can really quickly replicate that system, we can do, as I mentioned, we're averaging 3 to 5 iterations on that sandbox system. And these are full-scale conversions and reimplementation, not reimplementations, but conversions and migration upgrades to S4. So these are really large-scale projects that we're able to iterate and be able to shrink the time for migration down to 4 months for these two projects. Again, I also should caveat that we always align ourselves with the SI and their methodology. So whatever they have for training, testing, code remediation, all those parts we're going to fall in line with that. But I would say, standard S4 HANA for an SMB mid-market company is going to be 4 to 6 months. That's the first question that came in. Second question is around what services on the Azure logging is available, from having an SAP system. So that slide that was presented is basically going to show the full stack of application, server, networking. Once you enable it for a server to have detailed logging, it's going to provide it within that monitor automatically. So the question that we get corollary to that is there a way that we can feed SAP's metrics into the Azure logging? And the answer for that right now is no. That is something that my understanding is that's being worked on. So that's coming shortly. So in the meantime, you would have your CCMS alerting, your Solan alerts, still go to your help desk. But very soon you'll be able to correlate that into the Azure logging also. And then one other question that came in, it was around the sizing, around the HANA S4 that's capable. So there's multiple classes, as I mentioned. There's a memory optimized set of servers that can go up to 12 terabytes right now. Some of those subscriptions aren't on demand, meaning that you can't turn those off and on. So some of those aspects around agility you cannot do today, just because these servers are so heavily capital intensive. Those require a commitment to run them for at least a year. Yet we see Microsoft continuing to expand to move that requirement of memory, the minimum size, I should say, that's continuing to go up for on demand. So on demand right now is available on a VM up to 3 terabytes, I think is the latest. It changes so fast. I want to put a caveat there, but I believe today it's 3 terabytes, which is a very large system. So encourage you to keep an eye on the sizes and where they're going. We continue to see those compress for the time for this introduction for the new family of servers. And that's all the Q&A we get come in. So all of our contact information is here. Feel free to reach out to Kristen and Christian for any questions around today's content. And if there's any other areas that you think that we might be able to help you in, we're most happy to do that. And then you can see our social media contacts here on the lower right.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Patrick. That was fantastic content. And like Patrick mentioned, Protera.com for more information. Otherwise, info@protera.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks again.
Thank you.